The more times we hear the truth in all different ways, the more quickly our mindset will change and we'll come to know and understand and feel the truth more clearly. Namaste, my awakening friends. This video is about what the truth is, as in the point of life, the purpose of suffering. Why are we here? What we really are. How do we find peace? How do we heal? What happens when we die? You know, all the big questions. What I've found is the more I practice and study A Course in Miracles and other awakening texts like the Yoga Sutras, the more simple the ideas about truth become. When you first come to explore the truth, it might feel big, unreachable, unknowable, maybe even not for you, but for those dedicated renunciate folk in monasteries. But I'm here to tell you that it's absolutely for you, my friend, and it's more simple to wake up than you might realise. It's our ego mind that has made up all these intricate stories, making everything seem complicated, seem layered, and given everything certain meanings. Don't get stuck in the story of your pain. Truth is simple. It's that we're not really here in this physical, limited world that we appear to see, smell, taste, touch, hear. We never really separated into a physical being. We're still part of God. We're experiencing a dream in the mind. So the way to deal with everything, all forms of suffering, big and small, to wake up from the dream of suffering, is to consciously connect with spirit, aka your higher self, aka that wise inner voice that's part of you, that knows and remembers who and where it really is. When connected, you then remember the truth with that part of yourself. And you do this whenever suffering arises. And then be willing for spirit, aka the voice for love, aka the loving, all-knowing seer inside, to transform that blob of ego mind for you, however it's showing up. It's not your job to technically heal or know any of the answers. It's your job to bring everything to spirit, every form of suffering, every thought, every physical pain, every worry, every situation. Bring all that to spirit and be willing to surrender it. For it to be transformed into light by spirit, not you, and then for you to remember the truth of where you really are. Spirit does the metaphysical magic. The ego might be saying, this isn't enough. But it is. It is. Just give every form of suffering to spirit for transformation and surrender to love. Dedicate everything to God. Since I started my yoga teacher training a couple of months ago, a big part of it is studying the philosophies behind yoga, because the asanas are actually only a very, very small percentage of yoga. It's one tool on the yogic path. Yoga is actually all about becoming enlightened, awakening. Some of the philosophies in the Yoga Sutras are incredibly similar to A Course in Miracles. They just use different words, different symbology. And these were written like 3,000 years BC. So like 5,000 years ago. One of the teachings in both A Course in Miracles and the Yoga Sutras is to dedicate everything to God, surrender everything to God. I used to find this a bit tricky, not really sure how to go about dedicating everything to God. But something in the Yoga Sutras clarified it for me. Whatever you're doing, for example, yesterday when I was driving to work, you dedicate that to God, to love. You do it for love. So I dedicated my drive to love, and it totally transformed my experience of my drive. It felt really peaceful and really joyful. I threw in a few ohms, which has benefits both physically and mentally for awakening, which I'll talk more about in another video. And I felt like that was the first time I'd ever consciously dedicated like a boring, normal life moment to God, and it just felt wonderful. So recap: 1, connect to spirit, the inner voice for love, which is the true part of you. 2, be willing to surrender whatever is causing you suffering to spirit for transformation. And 3, dedicate your average life moments to God, Simple, a 3-step plan. But we're so conditioned into thinking that we're this physical ego being that has all these physical, mental, emotional problems. The ego tells us that the story of our suffering is important and that we need to unpack it to heal it. Talk through all your feelings, dredge up all your stories and emotions and marinate in them. Go deeper, go harder. Think about why you're this broken person and try to fix all these things that are wrong with your body, your mind and your life. See how this is taking you away from true healing, separating you from oneness, making you feel like you've got to do it on your own, making you identify as a separate, broken being that has to figure it all out on their own. Yes, there is a slight amount of noticing that needs to happen. Notice this challenge, notice that pain, notice that thought. But the healing process is exactly the same for every form of suffering every time. Because none of this is real. It's all symbolic of the same truth or the same fabrication. You could see it all as puffs of smoke from a big jar of black smoke. The smoke comes up, you notice it, you remember the truth. You're not really in the jar, you're in this nice blissful eternity outside the jar. Then let the light of the outside dissolve the black smoke that has arisen. Then when all the black smoke has arisen and the light of the outside has dissolved it all, you will return home and this experience of duality and physicality will fade like a dream. This jar will be no more and you'll be back experiencing the blissful, ecstatic amazingness of oneness eternally. You'll be permanently safe, blissed out, connected to all forms of love that you've ever experienced here in the physical experience, at one with your friends, your family, your pets, God itself. Love radiating in every unimaginable way. Every person that I've heard that's touched the experience of enlightenment says it's indescribable, incredible, makes everything in this world pale in comparison to even 1% of the bliss of reality. So it's like we're giving up a cardboard box for a mansion. Something vastly superior, so much better than we can even imagine. So to recap, don't let the ego trick you into thinking it's a mysterious, unknowable, tricky path. All those feelings and thoughts can indeed pop up, but ultimately it's simple. Number 1, connect to spirit, the voice for love, your true self. Number 2, be willing to give every form of suffering up to spirit for transformation, big or small, physical, emotional, thoughts, events, situations. Number 3, remember what and where you really are. Untouched perfection in oneness, enjoying an ecstatic experience, at one with every form of love you've ever experienced, and every form of joy, beauty and pleasure that you can think of. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment. I love reading your comments. Share it with friends that you think might resonate. If you're interested in learning a bit more about Course in Miracles, if you're new to Course in Miracles, I've got a course teaching you how to put Course in Miracles into practice in your day-to-day life. I'll leave the link in the captions below. Also check out my Patreon if you'd like to support this channel. And thank you so much for being here. Have a lovely day.